Welcome back to State and Local Government and Politics. In this video, we'll discuss 21st century network approaches to federalism. Two major conditions led to a dramatic change in the character of federalism in the United States. First, technology has forever changed the way in which governance occurs. And second, the post-9/11 policy environment and the war on terrorism led to a greater reliance on network approaches to federalism. A related condition has been the decline of the traditional fiscal federalism relationship. In the 1950s and 1960s, policy goals of the national government, in cooperation with the state and local government, were supported with financial resources received from the federal government. This fiscal federalism relationship meant that new policy goals were not as burdensome to state and local government in cost terms as they had been in the past. This fiscal federalism relationship meant that new policy goals were not as burdensome to state and local government in cost terms as they had been in the past. Beginning with the Reagan presidency, the monetary taps of fiscal federalism began to decrease. Until the COVID-19 pandemic, federal resources were in much more limited supply. It remains to be seen in this regard how we will emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. Fiscal federalism. In public economics, fiscal federalism refers to how central government applies grants and payments to lower levels of government. How is network federalism different than other forms of federalism? First, network federalism arrangements are often decentralized to the level of the individual or informal team. For example, a law enforcement response to riots or natural disaster is often a function of changing circumstances. Second, the strength of coupling or formal control within and between levels of government or agencies is very limited. Third, power is informally distributed and redistributed depending upon need rather than convention that had been based on formal vertical power distribution. There are at least three advantages to the newly emerging model of network federalism. First, reduced cost. While governmental units continue to overlap, collaboration means that wasteful standalone efforts are limited. Second, increased effectiveness. Network federalism means that individuals converge around a problem based on the nature of a problem at any given moment. And third, increased unity of purpose. As governmental units begin to work together to create mutually beneficial successes, there is a greater sense of unity and less jurisdictional squabbling and miscommunication. While network federalism sounds like a laudatory solution, there are at least three potential challenges that must be considered in the years to come. First, diminished accountability. Accountability at all levels of government is posed a challenge. Informal intergovernmental relationships in network federalism means that discovering and rectifying problematic point sources is nearly impossible. Second, groupthink. As intergovernmental or interagency teams become more common, group members are more likely to begin to see problems and solutions in a similar manner, essentially eliminating the necessary argumentation that furnishes information about all sides of a problem. Additionally, groupthink can lead to elitist and exclusionary governance processes and outcomes. 3. Centralizing trends. Network federalism does not mean that all levels of government have equal resources and capacity to respond to governance issues. The national level of government is often thought to be well-funded and highly professional in terms of personnel training and leadership. In many instances, it is likely that networks will form around national government actors, while state and local actors might serve in a supporting capacity. Federalism and the core dimensions of sustainability. The social objective dimension. Working together makes sustainability more likely. In the U.S. federal system, the social objectives dimension of sustainability is achieved through the porosity of government institutions and the multiple points of contact between citizens and overlapping units of government. Strong social capital and the collective action of civic-minded communities are often associated with effective and adaptable government. The economic objective dimension. Sustainable economics means managing resources at the local level, where citizens are more likely to witness the production process at work and can better scrutinize the sustainability of the economic process in relation to the negative environmental impacts produced. Understanding the true costs and benefits of achieving what is wanted may refocus local consumer attention on which goods and services really do contribute. Third, the environmental dimension. Federalism offers greater opportunity to raise awareness of policies that could damage environmental quality. Additionally, local management of the environment and common resources may give citizens greater responsibility for the resources from which they collectively derive benefit. Fourth, the institutional dimension. Institutions operating in a sustainable future government may look and operate differently than the nation's current paradigm, built around 18th and 19th century public and private institutions constructed in far simpler times. The desirable values undergirding these institutions might include social and political equity, racial, ethnic, and gender equality, and intergenerational justice. Yet the exact nature of those new and exciting directions will be shaped by the technology of tomorrow. Federalism offers the opportunity to experiment with different institutional designs to determine what works best, when, and for what purpose. In conclusion, according to research on sustainable federal systems carried out in the international context, those federal systems that are based in constitutionalism and feature defined powers of each layer of government are reflective of cultural and geographic diversity, have democratic institutions, provide adequate resources for governance, and are the most institutionally sustainable. Approximately 70% of a typical public agency's budget goes to salaries for employees. If proportional weight is any guide, then the most important resource that money buys is people, time, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Another important resource purchased by money is the infrastructure of a governmental body and tangible goods and services needed to produce a desired governmental outcome. However, the state or national government mandate requires certain practices, and such mandates frequently shape the relationship between governmental entities. Commensurate resources are required to meet the expectations established by those mandates. A successful intergovernmental relationship often requires the transfer of funds from one unit of government to another. Some careful observers of American government and some state officials question the amount of federal spending and aid they receive in relation to the amount of federal taxes paid by the citizens and businesses of their state. There is a wide disparity among states. See the charts on page 224 to 226 with respect to how much is paid in federal taxes versus how much is returned in federal spending and aid. Of course, the amount of money collected and spent by the federal government is related to many factors, including, but not limited to, the salary levels of workers in high-income states leading to higher federal government revenues through income taxes and other fees, the presence of higher levels of poverty leading to more federal spending on poverty programs, and of course, the presence of strong and influential senior elected officials in Congress steering resources back home to their own state. For example, pork barrel projects and the inclusion of earmarks in agency allocations. Pork barrel refers to the appropriation of government spending for projects that are not necessarily economically viable, but pursued because of their appeal and benefit to particular constituents. People themselves are important resources. However, the structure of the institutions for which people work, as well as the working environment and location, do more to shape the effectiveness of workers. Individuals working in the Federal Bureau of Investigation, for instance, are often used to working in an agency setting with a unique organizational culture. The organizational culture is the underlying values, beliefs, and ways interacting that contribute to the psychological and social environment of an organization. The social and economic conditions under which a particular level of government or agency of government operates has a significant impact on the intergovernmental relationship. For example, when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers arrives in a locality intent on building a dam for flood control or power generation, the conditions under which state or local governments operate will have an impact on relationships with the Army Corps of Engineers. While conditions cannot be made uniform across levels of government or jurisdiction, successful federalism requires that political and administrative entities engaged in intergovernmental work come to terms with these differences in working conditions in order to maintain effectiveness and professionalism.